Raising the Bets is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to Raising the Bets, a family podcast of pirates and penguins. We're a Catholic couple raising 5 kids outside of Boston. Join us as we share the joys and challenges of marriage, homeschool, and our adventures near and far, sometimes more near than far, as we make sense of the world and experience the best parts of our culture. I'm Don Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
So, folks, we had a really great conversation in the last 20 minutes that we didn't record as we were sitting down getting ready to record. So, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. No, just kidding. Just imagine what we said. Anyway, it's tough right now. It is a tough time. We've gotten past the spring. It is now officially summer. We had the solstice.
Yes.
Yesterday, as we record this, or today, or
yesterday.
I think today's the first full day because it's the 21st. But it was like 5 o'clock yesterday was the switch over.
I feel like I totally just missed the solstice. I blinked and
when
you turn
the sun back an hour or something like that. I forget what it was, something like that. But
anyway,
yes,
we've had a hot snap this week, and it feels like summer.
It's a heat wave, tropical heat wave.
Which my dad, I was talking to my dad, of course, this afternoon.
In Texas.
It's Father's Day. Yeah. And I'm saying, oh, yeah, it's really hot. And he's like, yeah, it's been in the high 90s. We even got to 100 this week. And I'm like, well, it's not that hot, but it feels hot for New England.
It's hot. It's not Texas hot.
No,
it's not Sidewinders cooking in the wagon ruts hot. But
I'm a Texan, and part of me says, okay, I know that this isn't hot compared to what I grew up with, but it still feels hot.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this, because it's, we've had, as if anyone's been listening for the last couple months, we've had the opportunity most weeks to get out and go places, go out to parks and to hikes and by the seashore, and the weather's been nice. We've had some 70s and 80s, nice weather, decent weather, not too hot, and that's spring here. Well. Spring is we start wearing parkas and we end up in shorts and t-shirts in New England, and we switch back and forth at different parts. But we had spring, and then summer comes, and all of a sudden, click, it's 90 degrees, and we have at least one child, and a couple probably, who just when the temperature gets above about 85, they cannot be budged out of the air conditioned door.
Right. I mean, if you can try, you can drag them places, but they just sort of melt into puddles and complain. The complaints is just
well, and to be fair, I mean, this child is particularly susceptible. Easy for me to say. It's 9:40 at night. This child is particularly susceptible to overheating ever since they were little. Like going to we went to the Roger Williams Zoo that time, and it was hot, wicked hot, like it is now. And everyone else was, kind of hot and drained, and this child was having heat stroke.
Of course, this child also had insisted on wearing pants and sneakers rather than sandals and shorts.
Yes.
So there's something to be said for sartorial decisions playing a part in this.
Yeah. Is it okay to say the child's name? Are we like?
I think that I would rather be circumspect. I don't want to put people on the spot.
I don't want to wake up with a lightsaber in the gut.
Exactly.
So that becomes an issue. How do we get out of the house in places when it's this hot, especially since it's not possible to go to museums or any other indoor places?
Right. Normally I would say, oh, look, this week is like all going to be 90s. Time for a field trip to the Museum of Fine Arts.
Right. Or the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, or the Museum of Science, or the aquarium. The aquarium at this time of year is perfect. It's dark. It's cold. It stinks of fish. Well, that's not actually so much.
Maybe not so much. Maybe you can take the ferry over.
You take the ferry?
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, that would be awesome.
Out on the water?
Now, because we're living in the bubonic plague, you can't do any of that. And so the only things that are available are outdoor things, which are all outdoors in the heat. where you melt.
Right. So this week we did actually, we should say,
We did get out
we went swimming
3 times. We imposed on my brother's his hospitality 3 times this week. We went to his house. We've never done that 3 times in a week at his house.
Although he is
No. They always say like anytime.
Would not mind. And to be fair,
well, you went. So we went last Sunday, as we talked about last time.
Yeah.
And then on Wednesday, you took the kids in the afternoon while I stayed and worked.
Right.
And then Friday, I took the kids. I took the afternoon off, got my work done early. When you're the boss, you can take the time off. And so I got my work done early. I took them, and you stayed here and had a nice afternoon alone.
I actually did cleaning. I scrubbed the bathroom, which desperately needed it, and I did some vacuuming and stuff. So
it was very nice to come home and see that very nice cleaning done.
Yeah, there's sometimes something about being home alone, which allows me to like slip into the cleaning mode, which I just can't when the kids are all around. Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to scrub the bathroom when there's 7 people home, all needing to use the bathroom.
When we have one bathroom, we've mentioned before, we have one bathroom. So yes, so it was good. So we went. I got to see my mom and my dad, and both my sisters were there. There was a little too many people for my liking for the social distancing. My sister invited a couple of her friends and their kids. I didn't realize they were going to be there, so I was a little put aback by that. Not even so much for us as because the rates of disease have been going down here, and so the odds of catching it from any particular person are getting less here in Massachusetts. But my mom and my dad are elderly, and I just want to keep them safe. So I was a little put aback by that. But in general, I mean, it was a really nice time. The kids had a blast. I mean, the idea, the kids are spending a lot more time swimming and learning to swim. That's been a big thing for us, is them learning to swim in deep water.
Right. We somehow missed the boat on swim lessons.
Yeah.
We had babies and toddlers, and I don't know.
We even talked about it at one point, didn't we?
Right. We actually did try to sign kids up for swim lessons, but the timing just...
The timing for everything is ridiculous.
It seems like most places like really have age segregation, like strong age segregation, and our kids would have been in like 4 different swim groups, and it just like I wanted to find one person who would just teach all of them to swim at once, and I never could figure that out.
Well, the other part of it is everything is, and understandably so, everything is built around school schedule. So the only times that anything is available is either early in the morning before, like for swim teams, or like in the evening
after kids are out of school.
After kids are out of school, but when we're trying to get dinner on the table, I mean, I don't know how people do it, how they get dinner on the table and run all over the place doing all these other activities. I'd love to hear from.
They don't cook dinner.
I guess, yeah. I mean, maybe a lot of people, they have different ways of eating dinner than we do. I mean, we do a lot of scratch cooking, so maybe that's the difference.
And a lot of that is to do with various food issues that we have.
Right. The food allergies. So, yeah. So that said, they're learning. The older 3 to the 2 older girls are pretty handy in the deep end of the pool. Ben is getting there. He still likes to really cling to the pool noodles, but yes. Anthony and Lucy they're comfortable without vests, without having swim vests in the shallow end. So they're getting there. I mean, Lucy's still pretty tiny, so
she can get her chin up above the water in the shallow end.
Yes, she can now. That's when tell a 7-year-old. But yeah, so we did that. And that's about the extent of what we were able to do this week, though. I mean, really, with the heat as it is, it's just laying us low. I mean, those hammocks. I have to say, the camping hammocks in the backyard were one of the best things I ever did. They're not traditional. I think I've mentioned this before. They're not traditional yard hammocks. The big, wide, semi-permanent fixtures. These are camping hammocks, so they were designed to be taken, folded up small, put in your backpack, and you go camping somewhere and hang them off a couple trees when you're going to sleep at night instead of in a tent. But when I first got it, I'm like, hey, the first one, I'm like, hey, let's try it out. Let's hang it up. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And the kids climbed in it, and I left it there. And I've been leaving it up, except trying to take it in the rain, except for today, because we had an unexpected thunderstorm. But trying to, leaving it up. And now we've got 3 of them out there, and the kids are all in them all the time. I take a turn, you take a turn in a nice shady spot. It's wonderful.
You're right. I was out in the hammock this afternoon talking to my dad, and it was nice and on the phone.
Not to the ear. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. On the phone.
Yes. Sorry.
Like a normal sane person. And yeah, it was nice and cool in the shade with the breeze blowing, and then the storm blew in and thunder started rumbling, and I moved to the covered patio, and then
then all the water in the sky came down at once.
The town next to us measured 3 inches.
3 inches of rain in an hour. That was the biggest downpour spot in the Boston area. Someone in our town on the Facebook group said they claimed that their rain gauge said 4.5 inches of rain in an hour. Which, given the pictures of the flooding in town,
I actually believe it. It was coming down.
Yeah, that I don't think I've ever seen it come down like that around here. So I was saying, well, I guess I don't have to get the power washer out and wash off the solar panels with the pollen anymore.
The garden definitely got watered.
Yeah, thankfully it didn't pummel all of the plants into the garden bed. At least I hope. I didn't get a close look, but I think they're okay. The tomatoes could have certainly used it. They need a lot of water in this heat this time of year. So it's looking good. The garden's looking good.
Yes, we have baby tomatoes and baby cucumbers,
yes.
And the squashes are flowering.
The peas and the green beans and the peas are growing. There are little vines up, and even the lettuces are kind of slow. I thought they'd grow faster, but they remain. We're gonna have a nice salad.
one salad.
We're gonna have one nice salad out of that. No, we're gonna have a couple salads, but yeah, we should. I keep wanting to plant the next rotation. I was reading up on the radishes, and you don't really want to plant radishes in the heat of the summer.
Okay.
You want to do a couple plantings in the spring, and then at least one more planting in the fall. So we probably aren't going to be able to get another batch in the ground after these.
All right.
Which is too bad, but next year, we're not gonna wait as long as we did. Once we pass first frost,
we have a learning curve this year. Plus, it took time to build the.
We had to build it, yeah. And next year we'll build another one. I'm so overambitious.
So totally.
So yeah. So
I'm gonna hold you to that next spring. I'm gonna remind you.
Okay. I've said it several times now, and I'm up for it. I like the idea. I want to do it. I love the idea of growing also my brother's garden is huge. He has a massive garden, but he's been growing a garden for years. And then my other brother, Bernie, he apparently has installed a drip irrigation system off of the rain gutters of his house.
Yeah, it's kind of impressive.
Drip irrigation that goes to every plant in the yard, including all of the hanging baskets. I mean, that is quite impressive. So I have to do better than they do because it's a competition. Always. When it comes to gardening and Italian guys, it's a competition.
Especially your big brothers.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in the blood too. The gardening, the green thumb in the blood. So the pool, we did the pool 3 days, and that's about it. Today was Father's Day, obviously, and we didn't do much. We've said before, we don't really do much for holidays things. The kids made me cards, which was nice. It's funny to see how the homemade cards evolve as the kids get older, and the 2 oldest collaborated on a card for me. They all have a Star Wars theme, obviously.
I might have suggested a little bit.
Oh, okay.
The collaboration part, like these sort of, yeah.
It was a little surprising that a card was produced by the 2 of them together. Lucy did spill the beans. She said they were making a Valentine's card for me.
A Valentine's card?
Yes. Do you mean a Father's Day card? Maybe. Okay. But it was good. It was kind of light side, dark side card. It was fun. And then we had, we'll talk about what we had for dinner. But one of the things we talked about before we started recording, it was because we want to, it's like we want to take a break from school and just do something else. Like I was suggesting, like have a movie day, where, and obviously the TV is in the office where I work, so that's not going to work. Plus it's hot as Hades in here because the air conditioning doesn't reach this room. But we have a projector and a screen that we could set up in the other room. So set up a projector and screen, watch Star Wars all day or something, or popcorn, and just have a day. But one of the reasons you don't want to necessarily take a break from school, take a vacation from school, is because we finally got momentum.
Right. I mean, we had a very rough fall and a rocky spring, and it feels like we've actually finally hit our stride with homeschooling.
Yeah.
The kids are getting up, they're getting breakfast, they're starting their schoolwork. Sometimes mornings in the last couple weeks, I have got up and they're like, "We finished our schoolwork."
Yes.
Good morning, guys. Can we read to you now? Let me get my tea and wake up for a few minutes, and then sure, you can read to me. Okay.
Yes. Part of their schoolwork is to do narration and reading.
Right.
Yeah.
They have to practice reading aloud because it's an important skill.
Yes.
Yeah.
But all of their math and copy work and
phonics pages, yep, all that stuff they can do on their own, and they've been doing it. Yeah. I mean, even Bella, she doesn't necessarily get in here early. I mean, she's 14, so I don't expect the early rising from the 14-year-old.
Yes, but even she's been getting her math done every day and making progress in math. I mean, really, I'm when we first started this, I think I mentioned this before, but when we first started this, she was struggling, and that's why she was coming in here and sitting with me to do her math while I worked, so I could stop and help her. But she's just really got it. She's kind of staring into space a few times. I'm like, "You got it? You need some help?" "Oh, no, I'm fine." She's just staring into space for a few minutes. But she said, "Oh, I got it. I just figured it out. I'll figure it out." She's really got it. I'm really proud of her. I think she's really made a vast strides from a year ago.
We've kind of let some other things slide, but I'm anticipating. So she'll be a freshman in high school this fall. And so I'm kind of willing to let her have sort of a freebie summer sort of. She's doing some stuff. I mean, she's working on her astronomy merit badge for BSA, and she's doing a Shakespeare class this week. But I'm kind of letting a lot of the other stuff.
She's got that Lewis and Tolkien class coming up later this summer, right?
Right. But in terms of the daily writing assignments and that sort of thing, I'm like, well, okay, fine.
Because, I mean, frankly, she and Sophie are doing daily writing together anyway, right? They write stuff together.
They do write. I don't know how often they're doing it, writing, but they do write. And yeah, it's just, you know.
I hear Sophie editing.
Right. Bella does most of the keyboarding, and Sophie pretty much just looks over her shoulder and tells her everything she did wrong. That's pretty much their relationship.
That's their dynamic. Yes. So, but yeah, it's hard to lose that momentum, but I think we'll be okay. I think there's a reason why people take vacations from school. Right. It's normally, and I think
right. I think that we are planning our getaway vacation not until August, so maybe it makes sense to take a week in June, end of June, and say we'll take a vacation week. I don't know if
actually planning a week away. Right. Yes, that is in the plan. We'll talk about that when it happens. So
if it happens,
right? We're still not 100% certain we'll be able to do it, but given everything, but we pray about it every night. So we should talk about stuff we've made recently, stuff we've cooked. And one of the things we cooked that I forgot to mention, I think last time, was we did a shrimp taco dish, which it's semi-grilled. Would that be an accurate description? So these were pre-cooked shrimp, frozen shrimp in a bag. Okay, so but we want to make shrimp tacos, and we wanted to just kind of dress up, not just to frost it and then slap it in a tortilla, with fillings. So we defrosted it, skewered it, and I got the grill going with some charcoal and threw it on there and put some smoke on it and some grill marks, and I think it made a difference.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried that it would get rubbery and overcooked,
right?
Because it was already cooked, and I know shrimp is very easy to overcook.
I really wanted to just get a little heat on it, some grill marks, some smoke, and get them off. I was very cognizant of that. So yeah,
it came out pretty good.
And then so with it, you made a crema, like it's a sauce that goes with it.
Yeah, like I don't even remember what was in it. It was like sour cream, maybe, and cilantro cream. And lime and garlic, maybe. I don't know. That sounds vaguely right.
It was a while ago.
And then I made like a cilantro lime coleslaw, which was pretty good.
Was that did you also have the mango salsa for that, or was that from before?
I think there was some mango salsa left over from something else. Okay. I don't know.
I really like a shrimp or fish tacos in the heat of the summer because it's light.
Yeah,
it's fresh.
It is.
I really enjoy that. And this was the trick is to have enough shrimp that everyone feels like they're getting enough to eat.
Yeah, that's tricky.
Yeah, but it was a deal on it from the store. They had you have all these weird supply things at the store still. Like suddenly they have a whole bunch of this thing that they're selling cheap, and like, oh, okay, let's get that. And they didn't, and then they haven't had it for 3 weeks afterward or whatever. It's like just the supply chain is all weird still. But so we did the shrimp tacos, the semi-grilled shrimp tacos, and then Wednesday when you were out with the kids at the pool, I had to get dinner going, and we decided to do pasta as a simple thing. So because it had to be simple because I was still working. But for the first time in a couple of years, I made the spaghetti sauce, which is I think
has it really been a couple of years?
It's been a while since I've made spaghetti sauce.
I guess so. I've sort of taken over the pasta sauce.
Well, and I gotta say, your pasta sauce is really good.
Coming from a Sicilian, that's a compliment.
It is, because, I mean, when we first got married, you left that to me. You were like, I don't.
I liked my pasta sauce. I was afraid that you would not.
Well, yes. Well, I didn't. It was a little too much, too many veggies in it at the time. We've kind of.
I was on a pasta primavera sort of.
You were making more pasta primavera, not so much like gravy, which is what Sicilians call it. And we've really brought it back together. In fact, I incorporate some of your techniques in that we've discovered together into mine. But the whole idea of using a big chunk of tomato paste to give it the depth of flavor right off the bat. When you cook it up, you kind of cook it dry after you've sautéed the onions and garlic. You throw the tomato paste in there. You kind of cook it in there dry and almost make a sofrito from it, which is really a cool technique. And then add the tomatoes and the other stuff and the red wine. And I added some Olive Bar olives that you'd bought. So they were all oil brined, almost like calamatas. But they also had like sun-dried tomatoes mixed in with it and rosemary and some other stuff. And I'm like, I'll just chop that up and throw it in.
Yeah, I really like the depth of flavor that olives give to a pasta sauce.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, it gives it that umami. It gives it the umami from it. Yeah. It gives that savoriness, which is really good. I think I also did mushrooms, didn't I?
You did.
I did some mushrooms. But again, the important thing is to get the mushrooms in with, when in the sautéing. Don't put it in the tomatoes, because then they just get mushy. I think that's one of the things, like when people say I don't like mushrooms, that's what they don't like. People don't like mushrooms, don't like mushy.
No, I think that there's even well sautéed mushrooms can have kind of a texture.
I guess. Well, these I always cook, now with sautéed to get them a nice brown and yummy flavor and texture. But
our kids still prefer raw mushrooms to cooked.
Yeah, very strange.
Whenever I put mushrooms in a dish, I always slice up 2 or 3 mushrooms into thin slices and then put them in a bowl and then hand them to the kids and watch them go crazy like little hobbits. Mushrooms! Mushrooms! Oh, mine! It's like a feeding frenzy of mushrooms.
Farmer Maggot's mushrooms.
Yeah. The mushrooms and olives are the 2 things that if I put into a little bowl and then bring to wherever the kids are congregating before dinner, they will usually disappear.
It's funny because if you ask them, do you like olives? Most of them will say no. I just don't think of them as like olive eaters.
Right, but if you
except for Ben and Lucy, they actually
if you put a bowl of olives in front of them, they'll disappear.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is funny. I mean, I did not like olives until I was an adult.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, there were always olives in my house, but I didn't really like pimento olives. The
Manzanilla.
The Spanish olives with pimentos in them. I didn't like those when I was a kid. I like them now, especially in a martini. But I like all olives now.
I remember actually. My dad has a cousin who married a French woman and lives
outside of
Paris, and I spent Easter with them one year when I was studying abroad, and I remember them serving olives before Easter dinner, like fancy aperitifs with
French Niçoise olives.
I don't even know what kind of olives they were. I just remember I very politely ate all of the olives that they put on my plate, which was an accomplishment, really.
Little black wrinkly olives?
No, I think they were green.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Niçoise are little black wrinkly olives.
No, these were not little black wrinkly, I don't think. Anyway, I just remember olives being sort of one of those things. And then I remember when I was tutoring, when I was in grad school, I had a very sweet mom who would always bring me a snack, like a little plate with cheese and crackers and a couple olives on it. And I would be like, it would be before dinner and I would be starving. And so I would eat everything on the plate, including the olives. And over time, like enough of those instances happen. And this is why I keep forcing the kids to try things, because I myself have experienced the
eventually you will
polite eating of olives because I really don't have a choice, turning into, oh, I kind of like these.
Well, this is why parents say you have to have a no thank you bite. You have to have a no thank you bite. This is why we always said that. You always have to take a bite, eat one bite, and say no thank you.
When the fact is, even now, there are some days when I think, oh, I like olives, and then I get myself some, and I am not in an olive mood. And so olives really are one of those things that some days I really want the salt, and some days I just really don't.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the different kinds: the oil cured, the salt cured, I think I prefer the oil cured more than the salt cured or the brine. Well, actually, I think I really prefer the brined.
I like brined olives.
Brined olives. Yeah.
I like kalamatas too, especially.
Yeah.
Nice Greek olives.
Yeah.
But yeah, I spent a semester in Rome. I went to Greece. I did not like olives. So I just didn't. I didn't like olives. And
I feel sorry for you.
I mean, I think, wow, I probably missed out on some really good olives, but I wouldn't have appreciated
certainly
them.
did.
I would not have appreciated
it's
them.
It's like going to Rome and not liking pasta.
I did like pasta. I ate a lot of pasta. I ate more pizza.
Speaking of pasta, well, another dish we had this week was Shanghai style scallion noodles with ground pork. I find that interesting, the whole with ground pork thrown out at the end. This was a recipe I got from, let me see, one of my usual suspects, Milk Street, 177milkstreet.com.
This one, I
it was
kind of
okay.
liked the flavor. The scallions were a little tough.
Yeah, there was it calls for a ton of scallions, and you're supposed to sliver them into 2-inch lengths.
But these were ones from our own garden, and I think that they might have just been on the old side as opposed to the ones from the grocery store, which are kind of softer and younger and
right. Because they're supposed to get fried and crispy, and then especially when in the leftovers, by the way, they were inedible. They were like shoelaces.
Yeah, they were tough.
I had to pull them out of the food.
The kids were like, "What is this?" I'm not. No, they were not at all.
And it's a very simple recipe. It's just ground pork, soy sauce, sugar, salt.
We also have a child who does not like meat that's sweet. No sugar.
Eye roll. Because that rules out so many Asian dishes. But and it's a dish that's a lot it's like Korean beef. It's like a lot of these other ground beef dishes with soy and sugar. In fact, this is a lot like lobster sauce.
I do not like lobster sauce.
I know you don't. It's one of my favorite things.
One of those weird things
at Chinese American restaurants that I eat.
Chinese American restaurants around here, I don't remember them.
Oh, no, it's from around here. It's totally a New England thing. But yeah, lobster sauce, which obviously lobster sauce has no lobster in it.
It's
a ground beef dish.
It's so weird. Why is it lobster sauce when it's ground
sauce
beef and like gravy?
For lobster.
But who would put that on a lobster? That's even worse.
Apparently some Chinese folks do. Well, what I love is when they put it in the seafood section of the menu. There's no seafood in this thing. This is straight up meat. But yeah, I have a recipe that I haven't tried to make yet, but it's on my to-do list. I want to try to recreate this, because if I can make this myself, this is one of my go-to whenever we order takeout Chinese.
Always,
this is always on there. And then I eat it with the fried rice. You mix it with the fried rice, like the pork fried rice or the house special fried rice that's got everything in it, and then you put some hot mustard on it and some of the sweet and sour sauce. You mix it all together. It makes a great breakfast the next day.
This is like totally like the thing that you ate as a kid.
It is totally the thing
like,
you
like comfort, like comfort food.
It's totally comfort food that people go, what? What are you eating? How could you possibly eat that?
Yeah,
it's because it's what we did. It's what we had. This is what my dad, my mom introduced us to these things, and this is what we ate. Because Joyce Chen, kind of set the standard for Chinese American food in the Boston area, and a lot of these dishes come from her restaurants. That and mushu pork.
No, we had mushu pork.
Yeah, but mushu pork, I think, really comes from Joyce Chen. Like she popularized it because she became a national brand. Because
my mom always ordered that whenever we went out to eat.
Well, Joyce Chen in the '60s, early '70s. I mean, she really.
I guess so.
I've heard podcast episodes and read some things about the spread of Chinese food in America. I'd like to read and hear some more about that. Actually, I'd like to, especially the Boston version of that, because Boston Chinese food is when I moved to Steubenville and went to a Chinese restaurant there, I was like culture shock. I mean, they had the usual things like, spring rolls or egg rolls and that sort of stuff and fried rice, but it was like, for one thing, there were no Chinese people. Like the idea of a Chinese restaurant without Asian people cooking it and serving it, like, I mean, when I think about like Italian restaurants, you have non-Italians in Italian restaurants, I guess, but it just every Chinese restaurant in the New England area has Asian people from China or at least Taiwan or from Asia working there, and it just kind of blew my mind to not have that. So it was very interesting, but and then the food was different. It definitely was different. They don't have poo-poo platters, I don't think, or did they? They have poo-poo platters in Texas?
They definitely have poo-poo platters in Texas, except our poo-poo platter, at least at the restaurant that my parents always went to, which was down the street from our house.
Okay.
Tian Hong, their poo-poo platter always had these like toasted, spiced pecans. It's such a Texas thing. I know they did not have those on poo-poo platters here. We did not have crab rangoons, which are pretty much standard around here.
Yes.
No, our poo-poo platter had like the meat on a skewer.
Yes. Teriyaki beef, teriyaki chicken.
But they always served it with like a little
sterno.
The sterno, and you could heat it over the thing.
You really weren't supposed to do that, but the people did it.
Oh yeah, totally.
That's not what it was for, but that's what people did.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those things that people sort of people saw a fire and they had meat on a stick and they thought, hey, that's what that's for. And it was it was decorative. It was not like it was originally decorative, and then they would laugh at people like, look at the idiot. Like,
but it's meat on a stick in a fire.
Exactly,
you've got to totally do that,
especially if you're a kid.
Exactly,
it's like better than marshmallows.
Makes it taste better.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, but yeah, so the spiced pecans was definitely one of those things that I loved on the poo-poo platter as a kid.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, but of course that's Polynesian. It's not even Chinese, really. Like a lot of what we call Chinese food in this country is really Polynesian food, food from the islands of the South Pacific that kind of got connected with Chinese food in Chinese immigration, especially through Hawaii. The World War II servicemen brought it back with them from serving the Pacific, and the whole tiki culture and the tiki bars and all that sort of stuff came with them. So very interesting. Actually, there was an excellent podcast episode of the Cooks Illustrated podcast.
One of my friends actually wrote a book about tiki culture. One of my UD friends.
That's cool.
Yeah, Jason Henderson. He and another friend, like a whole book about California tiki.
It is kind of fascinating, like the whole Trader Joe's Trader Vic's thing. Like Trader Joe's kind of comes out of Trader Vic's, which was a chain of tiki bars on the West Coast, and the whole thing. It's kind of fascinating. Anyway, we're far afield. So today,
We totally are.
Father's Day. You at the store the other day, you for a Father's Day treat, you bought a whole bunch of chicken wings.
I did.
For me to cook.
You would not like it if I cooked them.
No. I know. I'm just kidding.
Honestly, you like cooking enough that like cooking your own Father's Day meal is a treat.
Oh yeah. No. That was no. That's fine. I'm just kidding. So yes, we had I made wings, and pretty much everybody likes wings to one degree or another.
Yes.
But I had to make them several different ways. So I made buffalo wings, and I have a particular technique. So buffalo wings there's two parts to it. There's the technique of how you cook it so that it's crispy and it holds onto the sauce, and then there's the sauce. I've got the technique down cold. This, with you got to coat it in cornstarch, or in my case, I use arrowroot because Lucy can't eat cornstarch, and some cayenne and pepper, and it makes it real dry, and then you fry it in the oil for 10 minutes or so at 360, and you let it drain, and then you mix it with the sauce when you're done. And I have a sauce recipe from Ladies Home Journal 1991 for the Anchor Bar buffalo wings.
Ladies Home Journal? You're making Ladies Home Journal buffalo wings?
Anchor Bar buffalo wings. You don't. Anchor Bar is the bar in Buffalo that invented buffalo wings.
Okay, but
yeah. Now, if I could get the Drover's hot wing recipe,
that would be better.
That would be better. I've talked about Drover's before. They are the wings, but this was okay.
The sauce was okay.
It was okay.
It wasn't to write home about.
It wasn't a right. Still working on that. So,
which is yeah.
But the kids liked them.
They did.
And then I made some just plain for Bella and Ben, who neither of them like the spice. And then I made a soy sauce wings recipe. This was a Cook's Country recipe, and it's basically it's a simple marinade of soy sauce, brown sugar, and garlic, and you put the wings in. You let them marinate for 2 to 6 hours, and then you put them in a 350-degree oven for an hour. I mean, you really put them in there. They're not crispy when they come out, obviously, because you're baking them, but they're really like sticky, salty, sweet, and they're really good. I mean, it's a sort of different experience from the other wings, but those were really good too, and Lucy really liked those. So those were good. I think we had a good meal with that one. So I'd love to hear what you guys had for Father's Day. You have anything special? I know a lot of my friends had steak and stuff like that. Lucy was asking me if you could have one food for the rest of your life, lobster or bacon or something else. Lobster, just lobster. If I had to give up everything else and could only have one of them, it would be lobster. It's not even a question.
We did not get lobster.
We did not get lobster yet. It's coming. I've been reading about how a lot of shellfish, because the restaurants have been closed, they have a glut in the supply.
So the bottom line is
prices are going down.
We should be going to get some shellfish.
Yes, like we had the scallops and the mussels last several weeks, but we should be looking at those prices for the shellfish because those should be pretty good. Oysters especially.
I don't know if I really want to shuck my own oysters.
That's such a lot of work. I'm not sure I do.
I'm quite happy with going to a restaurant and having them do it for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. No.
So that's what we've been eating. So do you want to finish a little bit talking about we'll go to Mass today?
Sure.
So we did a split Mass again.
Yes. And it was my turn this time.
Yes.
Again.
Well, I was a little concerned for myself, and
I was willing to say. I said it's Father's Day. You could go to Mass two weeks in a row. I mean, it's Father's Day, so,
right? But the when I went last week, and it was only 80 degrees, I felt like a little claustrophobic in the Mass because our church is not air conditioned. It is an old
100-year-old
New England church, no air conditioning, big stone,
Gothic
English Gothic style church, and and the Masses are not short. That one Father Michael is celebrating. They're no shorter than they were before. And it felt close. I was okay, but it felt close. And I was thinking 90 humid. I'm not sure I could do it. I wasn't sure I could take sitting there for an hour with this mask on my face.
It was tough.
Yeah.
I will say that. I tried really hard not to think about it, and I mostly succeeded in not really. I tried really hard not to dwell on being uncomfortable, because I knew that if I started to think about it, I might lose it.
Yes.
But
and you had 3 of the kids with you.
I had Isabella, Lucy, and Anthony.
Yeah.
It helped that we were sitting far away from other people and far away from each other, so that I didn't have like
people next
to me. I think that if it had been a crowded church, I don't know that I could have handled it. Like body heat from lots of people. I did a rough count, like kind of peeking over my shoulder, and I estimate 40 people in the church, including the priests and
everybody,
lectors and pianists and cantor and everybody.
Yeah.
So it was not a big crowd.
I've been hearing that a lot of people saying like that the churches are not even at the max capacity that they've been told that they can have.
Yeah, there were like, so they've taped off every 3 rows, like I've said. But even then, like the empty rows that were like free to sit in, there were whole rows that were
bunches of
nobody's. So I mean,
Father's even been kind of hinting at, hey, let people know that it's okay to come back. It's safe to come. I think he's a little concerned about it. I mean, part of it is that the mass going population, much of it is the high risk population. There's overlap. There's an overlap between them. So there's that.
Yeah, there was at least one older lady who I was thinking, wow, she's really old.
The one in the wheelchair up front.
Yes,
yeah, she's front. There every time.
Yep. God bless her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's got to be like nearly 100. I mean, she's probably not too worried. Like, well, today, next week, whatever.
Right. I mean, I've heard that sentiment from some older people, and I respect that. Saying, you know what, it's been a good life. If this is my time, it's my time.
Yeah. Like I don't have years and years to go that I'd be losing. So I think that enters into it.
That's your choice.
But yeah.
So we had a visiting priest today who I believe he said he was Canadian.
He was born in Nova Scotia.
Born in Nova Scotia.
Yes,
that's right.
But he was a religious order priest who I think hinted that he'd served in the Philippines.
I missed that.
Yeah, he said something about, like, because right before you said about being from Nova Scotia, he said if I was celebrating this mass in the Philippines and Southeast Asia. Oh,
he did say something about that. I remember that now. I didn't really catch why he said celebrating in the Philippines.
I think that's what he was hinting, that he'd served there.
That makes sense. I think he's a Holy Cross Father, right?
Right, because they often get priests from the Holy Cross Fathers because Stonehill College is right down the street.
Right. They're the Father Andre Bessette priests.
Yes.
I like them. They're very nice. They're mostly older.
Well,
yeah.
Religious order priests, it's kind of what we got nowadays.
Right. But yeah, they're good. He had a really good homily today about be not afraid.
So the gospel, right, where Jesus says nothing is concealed that will not be revealed, nor secret that will not be known. So that's what we start with. Like, everything is going to be, revealed. But then Jesus says, do not be afraid. And so there's a
and then we end with one of my favorite verses, which is you are worth more than many sparrows.
Right. Do you not count the hairs on your head? I think it's like the Father knows how many hairs on your head. And that's when I commented to Sophie, that's harder to count for some of us than others.
This is true.
I could probably count the hairs on my head now. Now, he said one thing that I thought was, he talked about, like, fear is not just for children. Like, there are legitimate fears.
Right. I thought his homily was so interesting because he went sort of back and forth between talking about, well, right now, the current situation, being afraid of getting sick, being afraid of, like,
losing your job, being afraid of, all of these bad things that could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the world we live in is legitimately a world where there are a lot of things that we
can be afraid of.
And unreasonably afraid of.
Yes.
But he talked about like sort of prudence, and he said God doesn't want us to live in fear.
Right.
He says, he talked about all the times in the gospel and in other parts of the Bible too, like, be not afraid is one of those things that's repeated probably more than anything else in the Bible.
And it was John Paul's motto.
Right.
Or first
God
words.
does not want us to live in fear. And yet, prudently speaking, wearing a mask is not living in fear. It's
right. He said, I misinterpreted until we talked about it, but to me, it sounded like he said, when we wear a mask, it's a sign of our fear. And what you said is, it's not so much like it's a sign of like an unreasonable fear it's just a sign of the world we live in and the things we have to be afraid of. It's a visible manifestation of that.
Right. It's a visible manifestation of a legitimate fear in our world
of getting sick with a terrible disease.
Right. And so he wasn't saying we shouldn't wear a mask.
Right.
And he was very clear that like the mask is a visible sign of our fear. God doesn't want us to live in fear. But he wasn't saying, therefore, we shouldn't wear masks.
Right. Like, he's also going to be prudent.
Right. Prudently speaking,
well, the law says we have to wear the mask, but even otherwise, there is prudence in wearing the mask in whatever situation.
Right.
Yeah.
But trying to do so in a spirit of confidence and trust in the Lord, saying, I'm going to take prudent measures, but then I'm not going to live in fear. I'm not going to be eaten up by anxiety. I'm going to trust in God. I've done my best, and now God will do his best. And whatever happens, if I get sick, if I die, I will still be with him. I will be in his care. And, we have to trust that he will be with us regardless of what happens to us. So I thought it was really good. I really felt uplifted by his homily.
So one of the interesting things I was going to mention to you is,
yes,
we watched the same mass streaming that you're at.
Right.
This is one of the things we've decided to do. We don't watch the shorter Catholic TV mass and make it a bonus for the kids who don't go.
Right. I sort of said, prudently speaking,
you have to watch the same mass.
Right. They shouldn't sort of get out of sitting through long mass card by staying home.
Right. So we watch it on Facebook, and I watch it on the Facebook Watch app on the Apple TV. And one of the things that it does when people post comments,
right, it pops up on the screen.
On the screen, I was thinking, like, next time I'm at mass and Melanie's here, I might like send her a message.
No, that would be wrong.
Hey, Melanie, I'm here. This is the homily.
So wrong. And everybody in our parish would be able to see it.
Yes, everybody would see the comment pop up. Hey,
it is kind of weird though.
Any worse than the amen and the hands praying emoji like every 5 seconds?
No, I actually kind of, honestly, I mean, I wouldn't mind if it disappeared, but in a way, it's kind of nice to see that like I'm not alone. I'm not the only one watching this. There are other people, and to imagine who they are and to feel kind of in solidarity with them.
Yeah.
I like it.
And it's funny. Sometimes it's people in like I recognize Brazilian Portuguese. I recognize like different languages. It's not like because we have a Cape Verdean and a Haitian communities in our parish. But these are obviously people who are not neither Cape Verdean or Haitian by the languages that they're using. It's very interesting. I'm not sure how people are finding it, but they are.
Well, Cape Verdean Creole is probably not that far from Brazilian. I mean, they're both Portuguese. Cape
Verdean is Portuguese derivative. So maybe it was. Right. Yeah, maybe it was Cape Verdean.
Right. I mean, it's because it's a Brazilian. I mean, it's a Portuguese Creole, which means that the root language is Portuguese, but a Creole is its own language that's sort of derived from people who learned Portuguese, but then blended it with other languages, and it kind of becomes its own thing.
You know a lot about languages. Did you take a great courses on that?
I did. I think we've talked about that, haven't we?
I think we did. Yes.
The John McWhorter Great Courses. It's an awesome, by the way, awesome lecture series.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wanted to also talk about something I read about today's readings from, once again, Mother Sophia, who's the superior at Mount St. Mary's Abbey. Trappistine nuns, the Cistercian nuns, that
Yeah, I
that are
think
local.
Trappistine, not Cistercian.
Well, it does say Cistercian nuns on their website right here in front of me.
I mean, I honestly,
But they're also
various-
Trappistine.
the various Benedictine reforms, I kind of get a little bit confused because I think the Cistercian is a reform of the Benedictine, but then the Trappistine is a reform of the Cistercian.
I think so.
So it's like layers within layers. So it's like onions.
Their candy company is called Trappistine Quality Candy. So, it's all Benedictine. It's Benedictines all the way down.
It is. It's Benedictines all the way down. So you just know that they're Benedictines. They're lovely.
She has a nice reflection on today's readings where the whole idea of total disclosure. And here's a quote from it.
Total disclosure?
Total disclosure. So nothing is concealed that will not be revealed, nor secret that will not be known. That's from the gospel today, Matthew.
That is not a verse that I actually picked up on, I don't think.
Right.
The concealed, revealed part.
Yes. In fact, she says the Greek words for concealed and revealed can also be translated covered or uncovered or veiled or unveiled. And then she talks a little bit about how we all kind of wear a mask, we wear a veil in the world that is our public persona, and we have a private self that we try to shield from view, but God sees through that.
Interesting.
So
I suspect that for nuns that there's a sort of extra layer of meaning with the whole idea of veiling and concealing.
She gets into later on in her piece. I'm not going to get into that, but she talks about the Benedictine, the rule of Benedict, and the communal aspects of this total disclosure of self. But this really struck me. She goes, if there's one religious concept that has us trembling in our boots, it is judgment. And she references Gerhard Lofink's wonderful book, Is This All There Is on Resurrection and Eternal Life, contains this description of judgment. Above all, it is disclosure. Before God, the absolutely holy one, nothing remains hidden. Everything is revealed. Everything comes to light. The individual's concealed and private thoughts, the silent and hidden deeds, even the things that have never been spoken about, never reported, never judged, even things that perpetrators did not know about because they were buried deep in the cellars of their souls.
Wow, that's wow.
And then she says, and yet Jesus says, have no fear. Why? Is he only speaking to the pure ones who don't need to have any fear? No, he's talking to all of us. Because even saints have sinned, even martyrs have prevaricated, she says. But God loves us. He loves us because he knows us. Not just even though he knows us. Like I love, like sometimes we love each other despite our flaws and failings and sins. God loves us regardless because of.
But I think that I understand that. Like living in a family, like sometimes it is your family members' foibles that are endearing. Like right. You think, well, yeah, it kind of drives me mad, but if they stopped doing it, I would kind of miss it because there's something endearing about some of these flaws that people have.
Right. She writes, God watches us. Are not two sparrows sold for a penny, yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. He's always watching. Even the sparrows he's paying attention to. He's watching.
So basically God is a bird watcher?
He is a bird watcher, right. So he says, I'm trying to remember what it was. God doesn't watch us in order to gather evidence for our judgment, for condemnation,
he's
to
not
convict us.
He's not the elf on the shelf looking for dirt.
Yeah. Ezekiel says, I swear I take no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but rather that they turn from their ways and live.
Right.
He's waiting, watching for any sign that his children have remembered him, ever calling out, is there anyone here who desires life? That's from the Rule of Benedict. And she says, this Father who watches over every sparrow as it falls, watches over me too when I fall, but he never gives up. He keeps watching, waiting, hoping, and loving. He's the Father who sees in secret. If we can believe in the Father who looks and listens and waits with love longing, we may find ourselves less afraid of being seen in our nakedness and more willing to draw back the veil. We may even begin to desire it, to long for the all-seeing, all-knowing gaze of the Creator that reveals us to ourselves in goodness, truth, and beauty.
Interesting.
And and I mean, there's an element of that in marriage too, right? There's an element of I revel in our relationship because I can be me without being concerned about the judgment. I'm just me, and you love me for who I am. I love you for who you are, just as you are.
Right. There's this sense of like knowing that there's at least one person in the world who knows your flaws, probably even better than you do, and who loves you anyway. Like that's humbling, and it's really the great part of marriage. Like
right, and I feel like I can be exposed to you in that sense, in that way. Like that veil gets pulled back, and I can just be me, and I'm not afraid to be me with you, at least when things are working right, when we're right. When we're communicating, when we're in sync. We're not perfect yet, but that is the sort of thing times 1,000 that we're looking for in judgment. So that when the judgment comes, it's not something to dread, but it should be something we leap to. We jump to the head of the line. Me first. That would be. I get a long way to go before I get there. Working on it. But it's a beautiful reflection on, and I'll put a link in the show notes to her reflection. But it's a beautiful reflection on this constant work to be willing to set aside the veils, the masks, the costumes, and just be ourselves before God, and to be willing to let Him see us as we are, not to be afraid of Him seeing us as we are. Even in our failings, that's a tough one. I still get a struggle with that, but yeah. So, anything else you wanted to?
This reading always makes me think of one of my favorite Rumer Godden novels. It's actually more of a novella. It's called An Episode of Sparrows, and obviously the title comes from this Bible verse, and it's one of my favorite of her stories. And it's about a girl who's sort of unloved and doesn't fit in, and who finds a vacant lot, and she ends up making sort of a garden for herself. And she does it by, kind of stealing things and scrimping and saving. But then she also has this beautiful moment where she goes into a Catholic church and sees a statue of Mary for the first time. Anyway, it's sort of a beautiful story, and it's sort of that sort of person whose life is valuable, even though they're kind of small and easily overlooked.
What's it called again?
An Episode of Sparrows.
An Episode of Sparrows. Cool.
Anyway, reading this reading always makes me want to go back and reread it.
Awesome. I think that's a good place to wrap things up.
Sure.
Let's take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Raising the Bets, including this week Stephen H., Patrick S., Robert B., Peter H., and Joshua R. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Raising the Bets and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. We'd love to hear from you and have any of your feedback. What'd you have for Father's Day? If you had a special meal, I'd love to hear what you all were having. So let us know by commenting at sqpn.com/bets. That's BETTS, or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to bets@sqpn.com, BETTS. Relevant links for our discussion are in our show notes on sqpn.com. I'll put a link to Mother Sophia's reflection there. So if you have not yet done so, please subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at the SQPN YouTube channel, where you should also hit the bell to get notifications. And until next time, I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Thank you for listening to Raising the Bets on StarQuest.